Have you ever been the one on the opposite end of favoritism? Have you ever been the one who was overlooked and looked over? Well, so have I. And it's something I want to talk about today because in church and in the Christian community, we can often hurt one another's feelings without directly realizing we're actually hurting someone's feelings. And we can be wrong in the process of trying to be right. What does that even mean? It means that today the church is filled with people who are unsatisfied with the way the actual church works today. And that's not just in a single church, that's in general at the church across the board. Do you know how many Christians I have met who were unsatisfied with the way politics worked in their local church? Now, they may not bring these issues up directly to the pastor or to the eldership team or leadership team or to the council or whatever organization or group is set up to oversee and deal with these issues. They most of the time remain quiet, silent, and offended, which is not good for that individual or individuals. It's not good for the church. It's not good for nobody. What does the Bible say about being offended? It says a lot of things about being offended. One thing is, what are we being offended for? Why are we offended? And how does it affect us in our day-to-day operation in dealing with our family, our life? Because the reality is sometimes when our feelings get hurt, we let that internal struggle affect those around us, meaning it could affect our spouse, our children, our co-workers. And it shouldn't be affecting any of those people because they don't have anything directly to do with the reason that we are offended at church. Now, sometimes being offended at church, if you're offended, we have feelings. Okay, let's get that out of the way first. All human beings have feelings, and we are designed to feel emotions. Therefore, when our feelings get hurt, depending on who we are, how far, how deep we are in our walk with Christ or how mature we are, or even if we have systems set up such as counseling structures that help us deal with our internal feelings, we can react in negative ways that are more detrimental to ourselves and our family than we should allow as Christians. This is a hard topic to talk about, but it's a topic as a church we need to talk about. And you know what? Pastors need to recognize too that sometimes the pastor is the problem. All the time? No. Are we saying it's time to attack the pastors? No, God forbid. We don't want to attack the pastors. We want to lift the pastors up. The pastor is the most important piece, beside Jesus Christ, of the local church, of that individual church. The pastor is the leader who was elected or put in place to see that particular group or that particular flock, through the day-to-day life and continue to feed them, right? So the pastor is very important, but sometimes the pastor gets it wrong. And sometimes the pastors get it wrong. I have been offended in church. I have been overlooked in church. I have had favor in church as well, so I've seen both sides of it. And I can say one thing. A lot of times we forget as a church the one lost sheep parable. I done seen it too many times. I walk in church and I'm like, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? And often the pastor or leadership will write that person off and try to give the congregation a roundabout way. Sometimes they'll directly give the reason why that person isn't there, but never do they address the fact that we should go find this lost sheep. I have not seen that in general. I've seen it if a member just doesn't show up, for a couple of weeks because life got busy, but there's no rift between that person. That person just hasn't showed up for whatever reason. Maybe that person is offended with the church, but I haven't seen to where the church knew that that person who left was mad at the pastor or mad at the church or upset with the pastor, upset with the church. And the church didn't say, you know what, this person has been back. We had some bad issues between us, but let's address it. Let's go back and get our brother or sister and bring them back into the fold because they're a lost sheep. I haven't seen that. I can't recall. I can recall a lot of things, but I have not seen that with any pastor, period. I've never seen that particular thing. Now, maybe you have seen that. And if so, please feel free to leave it in the comments, how that experience went. But church hurt is a topic that needs to be addressed, because I think the reason a lot of people aren't in churches and the decline of population in church continues to go is because the church doesn't know how to address this. What the church does is they're reactive. They're not proactive. So social issues arise and the church is like, oh my gosh, we got to deal with the social issue. Whatever the social issue may be, the social issue of the day may be racial inequality. And now the church jumps on the bandwagon. We're going to deal with it. And then I've seen their reactive way to deal with it is more like counterproductive than productive. It's like now you're trying to be reactive to racial inequality. And what you're doing, I don't think solves the problem. And I think a lot of people, if they asked them in the congregation, would disagree with the particular way in which the church is trying to deal with that particular issue. Now, are we perfect? Is the church perfect? No, they're not perfect. But as the church's job and responsibility is the people. And if somebody in the flock is not there, the church should always go get that person who's gone, that lost sheep, and bring that lost sheep back in the fold. And what does it even mean? See, we just hear this parable. The shepherd left the other 99 to go get the lost sheep. You know, what does that mean? So Jesus used the parable of the lost sheep. And this is, in my mind, understanding, how this works. So a shepherd has 100 sheep. One's lost. Okay. It's the next morning before he realizes the sheep is lost. So the shepherd's thinking, well, last time I counted, there was 100. Well, when was the last time I counted? That might have been the evening before night set. Now it's well into the morning. The sheep are grazing. It's 15, 20 hours later. He realized he lost a sheep. They done moved a couple miles, up and down hills and mountains as they feed and graze. So he don't know where he lost that sheep at. So you know what that also means? That the shepherd is going to have to go through possible small journey and travail, some pain to go find that lost sheep. So maybe it's inconvenient that the pastor or the leadership at the church needs to go find that lost sheep. And maybe they don't need to drive or go through miles of rugged terrain, but maybe they need to go through some internal conflict to bring that lost sheep back with realizing where they may have been wrong. And maybe they were not wrong. Maybe they were 100% right. But they still need to have a soft heart and go find that lost sheep and do their best to bring that lost sheep back. Church is fractured today. One, because I believe they don't want to deal with issues. And two, it's because they don't know how to deal with issues. It's hard. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have it all figured out. I have a more rugged approach on how to deal with things. And I'm saying that can't solve all problems. I'm saying that the church needs to get together and figure out what they need to do to deal with the lost sheep. That's what I'm saying. Because the lost sheep's important. And another thing I notice with churches is a lot of time that the people who are going from church to church are just already Christians who are offended from one church to the next. Church hopping, whatever you call it. You know what I mean? And look, church hopping, I don't think is a good thing. I think you need to stay planted. But sometimes people leave and their reasons for leaving are really legitimate. They're really not being appreciated where they're at. And the congregation is overlooking them. So sometimes the people who leave and go from church to church, they're not wrong. And sometimes they are wrong. Sometimes the pastors are wrong. Sometimes they're not. I'm saying there's no definitive way either way. But how do we fix it? Instead of having, we got new church members. Who are the new church members? These are new people who are newly saved. You see that a little bit. But more often than not, you see a family coming to a church. They've been saved for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Their whole life they've been in the church. You know what I mean? They just move from one place to the next. So they're just going from church to church. So churches are changing members. I see it a lot in church. I see it a lot. I'm from Louisiana. I've been in New Orleans. I've been in different parts of Louisiana on the North Shore. And what I see is some of the members from here become members here. Vice versa. There's a lot of trading of members. You know what I mean? Kind of like a football team. You know what I mean? And, when they trade in the off season, you see a lot of trading of people in church, So it's just a topic that I thought about, because, sometimes I reflect back and I think of how, as a young Christian, I didn't want anything to do with the church. It was more important for my wife that we be a part of church. And as I begin to go to church, I begin to realize church is very important. Being connected to a congregation is very important. But it's okay if we talk and share our feelings, right? And come to the table. That's something that we're actually talking about in church. And I didn't intend to mention that, but it's right. If we come to the table and talk about these issues, will we see eye to eye when we get up and we're finished talking at the table? Maybe not. Maybe so. but we can come to some kind of mutual agreement that each other's feelings are valid and each other's feelings matter. Now, I'm not talking about a person who's coming into the church and is involved in witchcraft and rebellion, and who's intentionally trying to come in and stir division as an enemy of the church or on assignment from the devil. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about genuine Christians who are living genuine lives that are a mess, that need to be able to work together and figure this thing out together. I'm not talking about the stuff where, you need to kick, because there are times when the demonic comes in, you need to recognize that witchcraft and kick that out of the church. I'm not talking about that. That's a whole nother topic. I'm talking about Christians who really love Jesus, who are just a mess. The lost sheep, the real lost sheep that needs to be found. And as a group of believers and as a church, we need to do a better job with the lost sheep. Like I said, I'm not a professional theologian. I'm just somebody who's been saved since I was 17. Yes, I read my Bible. Yes, I've read the Bible. Yes, I continue to study the Bible. I've read Christian book. I watch sermon. I sit inside the pew. So in a nutshell, I believe if you add it all up, those of us who've been walking with God for a long time, we have a lot more theological education that is not credentialed than you may realize. Listen, the 12 apostles who became the leaders of the churches, most of them dudes did not have no formal education. They just sat underneath their leader, Jesus, for, 3.5 years. I've been sitting under leadership in the church for decades. So, and I've learned a lot, and I still haven't got it all together. And I don't think nobody ever will. And some of the best Christian people that I know, who, when I mean by best Christian people, I mean the most mature, the most solid, the most sound Christians that I know, they still aren't perfect. And these are the men and women who I look at as being solid in the faith. You know what I mean? Having the most together. And they still aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we need to love each other where each other's at. And we need to do a better job of dealing with our issues and our mess inside the church. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, this is me just talking off the top of my head. But what I would also like to ask you, fellow believers, is if you can give me a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe to my channel, Chief Center Ministry, as we begin to get this channel going a little bit further. And as we share and talk about Jesus from the heart. I don't know it all. I don't have it all. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to discuss them and try to figure them out. And I do have a voice. As a child of God, I have a voice. Now, my voice may not be perfect sometimes when I say things, and I could be incorrect at times, but I have a voice, and so do you. So do you, beloved. You also have a voice. We all have an opinion and a thought, and it's okay if we share it. And you don't have to feel that you have to keep quiet, because you can speak up, because God loves you. He gave you a voice for a reason. Just be careful and thoughtful on how you share your thoughts and your opinions. Make sure you're doing your best to say, hey, God, I want to filter this right. I just want to say how I feel. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but this is what I'm thinking. And it's okay to say what you're thinking sometimes, but, try to be your own filter sometimes, because we need to be careful on what we're saying, because we don't want to bring damage to the body. We want to edify the body. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of Chief Center Ministry. And until next time, have a blessed and great day.